Our things are bigger.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Cat.
And Bubba.
For It's Hot Where We're Going.
I mean, you're not Cat and Bubba. You're Cat and I'm Bubba.
Depends on who you ask. You ask Gary Morgul. Go either way. Fucking Gary.
Or Allie.
Yeah, or Allie.
Are you guys brothers?
Wait, you're not what? You're not what?
What?
So we're doing our vintage video game series here.
Yeah.
Got a few questions. Figure we'd Facebook Live it. And
Is anybody watching?
Austin Lineweaver is joined. So we'll see. He's a young buck.
Oh, jeez.
Awesome fucking guitar player. I wish I could start a band with him, but I can't seem to get him to do that. Oh, Christ. Yeah, there's a few people joining. Hey, what's up, guys? Stewie's joined. He's going to have some questions for us. So we're doing our classic vintage video game series. And so what we got going on here, we asked people to ask us some questions. We got a good list going. But we'll start with our questions. What's first video game you remember playing? Not console, but just video game.
The first... Well, I don't know. Like, that particular... It was a Pong game at my cousin's house.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a toggle on there where you could toggle between one versus the regular
Yep.
Pong, and then the other way was Breakout, single player Breakout.
Right. So you had 1 to 2 players.
Yep.
And then could you do like doubles with yourself? I mean, so it'd be 2 people, but there were 2 things that go up and down?
No.
Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
Because I've got one in my basement. It's Pong 4, and it's got a bunch of other crap besides those 2. But that'd be my first console game. Was my dad gave me a Pong that he didn't want. I was probably 10 years old. Brought it over. He forgot the power cord.
Oh.
And I was bawling my eyes out. My dad only lived like 15 minutes away, and he would not go home and get it and bring it back to me.
Oh.
So I had to wait 2 weeks to get that fucking cord.
What a jerk.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough for a 10-year-old, but, taught me how to be a man.
Yeah.
So, but is that the first game you remember playing?
That's the first game I remember playing. And I think each control, well, they were permanently wired in. They weren't like modular.
Right.
Like the Atari.
Yeah, you had to sit right next to your person you were playing with, right?
And each controller had a button and a dial.
Okay.
Because I think if you pressed the button, you could hold on to the ball.
Oh, cool.
And
so that must have been a little bit different version of Pong. Because very first one, it automatically shot the ball off, and all you had were 2 paddles. On the single machine, there was nothing removable, and you had to sit right next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
And the speaker was in the machine itself. It didn't come through the TV. So it was just bloop, bloop, bloop,
bloop. No, these had wires. They were probably 3 or 4 feet.
Oh, cool. So that's kind of what my Pong 4 has.
Back away from, the console, and then there was a button you could to launch the ball, and then you could actually catch the ball.
Catch it. Oh, cool.
So
cool. Yeah, I've never actually opened or plugged in my Pong 4. I bought it at a garage sale, turned it on to make sure it worked, and then put it back in the box.
And I that had to be early 80s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure when Pong left.
That was like back in the day. But
Corey said, "It's me, Mario."
And we'll probably talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, we might. So yeah, I can't. I was trying to think of the first video game I remember playing. It might have been Pong. I don't remember if it was Pong on my dad's or my uncle had a Atari 2600, and I loved playing Combat on that. So it was a tank game, and you had to use the paddles.
Yep.
And that I loved playing that game. So I think that might have been my first one. And at the time, I was the only nephew, or the only cousin, whatever, nephew, niece, that he would allow to touch that system because I knew what I was doing even when I was a kid.
Right.
Because you had that goofy adapter that had the 2 prongs, and one side was broken, so he just had it wire split, or stripped.
Yeah, ours ended up like that.
Yeah. So, but I was the only one who knew to unscrew the antenna, put that thing on, and screw it in safely, and so it was kind of cool, So did that. He had that, and I learned how to play poker on Atari 2600.
Yep.
Rodeo. He had those kind of games.
Yeah.
And so those would have been my first, but
remember I had a friend that had an Atari 2600, and I used to go over his house, and he'd kick my ass in every game because he'd play for hours a day, and I got to play for an hour a week.
Right.
And I think like there was a tank game. I remember.
Yeah, Combat probably. That was their big one.
That's probably the one.
Yeah, that was the big one.
But he used to just destroy me in that game. And then I had a cousin that had the Intellivision. Remember the Intellivision with the cards that would slide into the controller, so you knew what button did what.
Yep.
And then I'm trying to think. Well, actually at home, my brother and sister and I ended up with Magnavox Odyssey 2 and played the shit out of that until we had one cartridge that came with it that was bowling and basketball. And it was as 2D as you could get.
Right. Yeah.
You're just basically throwing a pixel at a line on the screen for basketball. And with this other cartridge that came with it, it was like you could make scrolling marquees on your television.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like, I don't know.
It was a marketing resource.
It was fun.
Right.
Right? We never used that, but eventually some of our buttons started. It was a touch.
Right.
It wasn't clickable keys. It was just a kind of a press touch.
Yeah. What do they call those? God, they had a name for them, but mucus cells or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. But eventually the buttons quit working. So the bowling had 2 speeds, fast and slow. And slow was fun. Fast sucked.
Right.
But eventually you could only ever pick fast for bowling. And I ended up getting really good at it, and I got a 300.
Nice.
So I can say I bowled a 300.
Were you able to curve the ball, or was it always straight?
No.
Really?
Nope.
Oh, cool.
You had to know exactly when to move the joystick to the, because you start on the side of the.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
Yep. And you hit the pocket every time.
Nice.
And but it was hard because the ball would go back and forth across the lane.
Right.
And you hit the button to send it down the lane.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
And so you had to hit the button at just the right spot and then curve it in just perfectly to knock all the pins down.
Right.
I got to bowl 12 strikes in a row.
Nice. Dude, that's awesome. I haven't even done that on the Wii. My son likes they've got a challenge bowling in Wii Bowling.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes up to like 100 pins wide or whatever. And
right.
I throw my shoulder out almost every time because he wants me to play it like 50 times in a row. So,
and that was all in the Pong one was probably maybe even like late 70s.
Yeah.
78, 79.
I was gonna say, I
would have been like
Pong
4. I know I was just a little kid. And the Odyssey I think was mid 80s, and then of course we had a Nintendo, an original,
Yeah, so the original Pong was a console. And this is a question from Dave Carlson, by the way. So the original Pong was a console to come out in 1972. That's the year I was born. So that's an old console. But the personal consoling game came out in 75. And then they've had multiple iterations of it since then with, when they added soccer. Where you had like 5 straight lines on each side with a ball that went bloop, 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 bloop. So, first thing you owned then was a console, or did you have a computer before that?
We never had a computer in our house.
Never?
Really?
Oh. So, where'd you learn all your computer stuff? Was that high school and after? Or?
My first computer was... trying to think. My sister worked at Gateway, and I was able to get a good price on a Pentium 3.
Really?
Yeah, that was my first.
Pentium 3 was your first computer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
Actually,
because this guy, he's like computer guru here. So that really surprises me.
It was the Pentium 3. Or maybe it was a Pentium 2. And I upgraded to a Pentium 3.
That had to have been around when I met you.
It was...
Had to have been around 2000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think I bought that PC in 2001. It was
Wow.
my first computer.
That blows my mind.
I'd used computers before that,
Right.
obviously, at college,
Yeah.
and you know,
Wow.
you know how embarrassing it is sitting at college. You want to look at some special pictures online.
Right. Did you have online? I guess online with a modem just started then, right?
Yeah. But well, at the college we had like the Iowa Communications Network,
Right. Yeah.
so it was fast enough and faster than dial-up.
Was it internet then though, or is it still?
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Like telnet based.
It was internet.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
The .com bubble was in the late 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
True. Yeah.
early 10s.
Huh.
But my actual first computer, I think I bought in 2000.
Wow.
2000 or 2001.
That's crazy.
And then XP came out in
98, right? No, 90.
2003.
Did it come out after 2000? Windows 2000?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost track after Windows 3.11 with networking.
So
I still have that. I still have 7 floppy disks or whatever in my house for Windows 3.11.
So because my computer wouldn't run XP, so I had to put in a new motherboard with a Pentium 3, and probably a whopping 2 gig of RAM.
Cops.
At least, right? And
wow. That's incredible.
but my first computer game then was Ultima Online.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's still out there.
They're still running.
Yeah.
You can still go out.
I have an account.
Do you?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Ultima is probably my all-time favorite game.
That was
In fact, you have to have an Origin account for
right.
like The Sims
Yep.
and all that. Maybe even for that game. But my account name is Richard Garriott, who is the creator of Ultima.
Right.
And now he's like some big philanthropist and
Yeah.
does all kinds of.
Made
But
a lot of
he's just releasing a new version of the game. There's a new one coming out, but that's not
Right.
vintage. So I digress. So my first video game would have been my first console would have been Pong, and then I never had consoles after that. So, my next would have been an Apple IIc. And that would have been my first computer. So age 12, I started programming. I literally bought the source code for a bulletin board system.
Right.
Lines and lines and lines of paper, code on paper, and went through and started modifying the bulletin board to make it my own. And so that's where I got into programming. So that's 33 years ago. No, yeah, 33 years ago I started doing that.
XP came out in 2001. I misspoke.
All right, 2001.
So that's when. So I must have bought my PC in like '99, and then I upgraded it in 2001.
Sure.
But that was my first PC.
Wow, that's crazy to me. So my first one would have been 1984.
Yeah, so I was in my mid-20s before I ever even owned a PC.
And you're like a fucking computer genius. That's
I'm
crazy.
not a genius.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
are.
really lucky, and I remember things.
Right. No, that's awesome. So what was your favorite stand-up arcade game ever?
Oh, by far and away, Ye Are Kung Fu.
Oh, so
YIEAR, not Kung Fu.
Really?
No,
I've never heard of it.
Ye Are Kung Fu. We had a little convenience store in our hometown, and they had an arcade in the one room,
right?
Like 7 or 8 games, and that was one of them. And I cannot tell you how many quarters I put in that machine because I'd be embarrassed to say.
Right.
But it was, you fought through, you were this guy, I don't remember the name of the characters, but you fought
Yi
through,
and R.
yeah. You fought through all these different characters, and then the boss at the end of the first level was yourself.
Oh, right.
Right. So it recorded how you fought through the first 8
nice.
guys, and then it matched you with yourself.
Wow. That's cool.
And then if you beat yourself,
Awesome.
it started over with the next guy, with the
but
first fight.
A little bit more difficult.
More difficult.
Yeah. Huh.
And
Oh, that's
I
cool.
was never able to beat myself. And playing the video game.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, so I remember, I think my probably all-time favorite video game, like stand-up console, would have been like Dig Dug,
Okay.
or something like that. Centipede maybe even was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I remember my dad had a Super America around the corner from him. We were in a pretty rough neighborhood, although back then you didn't know it. It was
Right.
just a neighborhood.
Right.
But it's not a neighborhood I would walk through now,
Right.
But I remember I was playing with my friend. We were going down, go to Dad's house, get some quarters out of his basket, go down, play some video games. Go back to my dad's 2 weeks later, and he ripped me a new asshole. Because apparently I took about $30 that last weekend. And I was a kid. I didn't know. I knew where Dad kept the quarters, and I went and played games. So, and it that kind of put a concept in my head of how much I was really
Right.
grabbing,
Right.
And so I had to work that off for him, and
Yep.
because he started giving me an allowance and stuff, so I had to work that off before I could get any more money.
Yeah.
So that was my first loan, and yeah, but I Dig Dug probably was
Yeah.
my favorite,
Yep.
But we had, I don't know what they all over the country had, but we had way back when Chuck E. Cheese was like the shit place to go, and then Circus was like the cool place to go.
Okay.
So we'd always go to Circus
Right.
and Circus Pizza, and they had huge arcade and win all the tickets and all that silly shit. But
Mm-hmm.
all those places are gone now.
Our video keeps kicking off.
Yeah,
here.
well,
Oh, well.
It was a test. What do you do? And it could be what I'm connected to, so that's all right. So what do we go next to? Favorite arcade game. So what was your favorite console game on Atari or?
Probably my favorite game that I still think I would probably play was Metroid on the original Nintendo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
love
honestly
that
say
game.
I've never played it. I've
Yeah.
never played Metroid, and so many people have said it's such a great game.
It is. And then
Never played it.
Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo got way better ratings and everybody loved that, but I loved the pureness of the original Metroid. It's just a platform, left to right scroll. But it was the first game I played where it was really kind of more puzzle-like, because you had to run and you had to find all these things. And I had a friend, he and his brother played, and they had these giant maps. They would map out these caverns that you were running through.
Right.
And so I would play it at his house because I didn't own the game. And then, you could use their maps to figure out where you needed to go to get, because there was like a set of high jump boots, a freeze beam or an ice beam. You could get missiles, and you had to have all this stuff. And then at the end of the game, you had to defeat this Metroid called Mother Brain. And then even then, the game wasn't over. You had to go through where she was and climb this cavern that seemed to take forever.
Right.
And then once you got to the top, you won the game. But I loved it.
Never played it.
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it.
I'll have to try it because I have it. I think I have it for the NES.
Yeah,
I think.
that's the original.
Right.
So and then So there was a Metroid 2, which was a Game Boy game.
Okay.
And then Super Metroid is actually the third game in the
all right.
series.
All right. Yeah, so this guy, Kian, I think it was Kian asked the question. So my favorite Atari 2600 game, and this could be a podcast of its own, but was E.T. And it was a quick wham bam. They got it done in like 6 weeks development. Spielberg wanted it done before Christmas, and Atari wanted it done before Christmas. I thought the game was really cool. It was kind of difficult, but that's what I liked, you know. Mm-hmm. And so it was my favorite game, and I don't think how did he word this? Did it destroy the gaming industry? And if E.T. the game did destroy the gaming industry, I don't think it did. So it was a hard game. A lot of people returned it because it was too hard. But back then, you know, we still weren't a computer society. We weren't a gaming society. So people wanted simple patterns and maps. And
right.
Nothing.
Yeah. The Pac-Man pattern.
Nothing difficult. And this had many levels to it. You had to escape from scientists. You had to eat candy to get healthy, and you had to, go here to find parts to build your spaceship. And so there's a lot to the game,
mm-hmm.
and people just couldn't handle that. It was just too much to do, and I finished it. Well, I don't remember how old I was now, but I loved that game.
Right.
The developer, I believe, was let go after it was all returned. And I don't think it was his fault. They gave him 6 weeks to develop a game, and I think he developed a kick-ass game. But what, in my opinion, happened, and I wrote these stats down, and we're going to tag some of this stuff on the Wikipedia things and all that. So Atari 2600, where E.T. came out, the Atari 2600 came out in 1977.
Yep.
So old technology. It was a 6507 processor, 1-bit sound on 2 channels, a 4K cartridge with 128 bytes of RAM. That was it, 128 bytes. So E.T. was released in 1982, 5 years after Atari 2600 was popular. So even by today's standards, end of its life for a gaming system. At that time, ColecoVision came out, had a processor 3 times as fast, had 3 tone generators at once, so it could do harmony in its sound.
Right.
It had 16 color palettes, and then its cartridges had twice the capacity, but its RAM was 1 kilobyte, so it was 100 times what Atari had, and then it had all of its own stuff stored in ROM, which Atari never did. So it had 8K ROM of its own to do whatever it needed to do with.
Speedy.
So yeah, it was way quicker, better graphics, better, you know. So I think E.T. just got caught up in the you're a difficult game on an old console.
Right.
You only had 9 directions you could run. You could go straight, you could go 45-degree angles every direction. That was it. That's all you had.
Right. So reading through his question, maybe I can rephrase this. So if the E.T. game had destroyed the gaming industry in 1982, what would video games look like today?
Oh, man. I don't know. Because
clearly somebody would have come out with something else.
I mean, there's always something new and better. And that, to me, that's what ColecoVision did.
Right.
Is they came out with something new and better. Around the same time even. Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think E.T. itself would have ever destroyed the gaming industry. I think Atari not stepping up its game. And Apple did the same thing, right? They wanted to keep pushing the Apple II, and Steve Jobs finally said, no more Apple II. We can't keep trying to expand on old technology. It's just not working.
Right.
And Atari was trying to do the same thing. Even the Atari 7800, 3 generations later, didn't touch what the ColecoVision did, and that was released 2 years after ColecoVision and still wasn't up to par with ColecoVision.
Right.
And then comes Nintendo. Nobody could touch it.
Right.
No.
And that was to me, that single instance of E.T. and its ripple effect on video games, had it at the time just completely destroyed video games, I don't think really would have mattered.
No.
Because Nintendo came in and they were not like anybody else. Well, they were similar, but it just, they came in, the price was right, the quality was right, you know, and everybody had to have one.
Right. You didn't have a block Pac-Man whose mouth only opened up and down.
Right.
Although Miss Pac-Man on the Atari 2600 had better graphics. She was sexy. And we'll get to that too, because Jesse's a freak. But hey, there's some.
Hey, there's a video. We got questions? I don't know.
Stewie's asking, I don't know if I've ever seen an adapter. I don't know what adapter he's talking about.
Okay.
You'll have to text me that, Stewie, so I know more we're talking about. So, so you said your first computer game then was Ultima Online.
Correct.
So, because that's the next question on my list. So my favorite game would have been the Ultima series, and before Ultima there was one called Akobeth.
Okay.
And I played all of them, all the way until Ultima 7, and then that's kind of when it all died down and he went into the online game. He had an 8, which was in like 6 pieces or something. Mm-hmm. It was just ridiculously huge. But Ultima was my jam. It was the first game that I learned how to cheat on, and I wrote my own program to modify my stats on my characters.
Okay.
But I was cheating, but cheating is spawned from laziness. So I didn't want to play the whole game. I wanted to cheat and then just breeze through it.
Right.
But it taught me a lot. All that stuff was done in machine code. Mm-hmm. So there was no assembly language. It was putting in byte by byte by byte code. And that sucks, but it's really is the most efficient code you can get because you're not jumping all over the place. It's very small and compact because it takes a long time to write.
My favorite computer game is far and away the Portal series.
I don't think I've ever played that either.
The original Portal was like it came as part of Half-Life in the orange box. Remember the orange box? There was a Half-Life and something else.
Mm-mm.
And Portal was included.
Okay.
Well, people went nuts for Portal. And it's a puzzle game. There are not really any enemies in there. There are things that shoot at you, but I mean, there's no monsters that jump out and grab you. It's a puzzle because you end up with a gun that can shoot blue and orange portals, and if you go in the blue portal, you come out the orange portal, and vice versa.
Okay.
So you had to figure out your way through these test chambers, and then the end of the first game is there's a twist at the end, and then you have to go kill the computer that's running the simulation you're in.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I'd never heard of it.
And then they came out with Portal 2, which enhanced some of the things that the gun could do. And same premise, you figure out your way through all these chambers, and then kill the computer that's running the simulation at the end again.
Right.
And then there's a community-based downloadable, they call them DLC, DLCs.
Yeah. Yep.
But
downloadable content.
Community-based add-on, and as long as you own Portal 2, you can download it for free through Steam. It's called Portal Stories Mel, and Mel is the character you play.
So do you still play that now then, since it's on Steam?
I've played through them through the original Portal probably 100 times.
Really?
It's it's 19 levels. People do speed runs and they're finished in like 30 minutes. I don't do that, but I can take and just relax, and I know how to solve all the puzzles in that one.
Right.
But just to run through it, takes me a couple hours.
Cool. Yeah, my favorite would either be the Ultima series, and probably up to Ultima 5. After that, I didn't really care for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But Akobeth through Ultima 5. Or if I go a little newer, the Diablo series. So I've played Diablo 1 through, and I still today play Diablo 3. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's just one of those games I really like to play. So I can't give you any specific reason why. It's just fun. Killing monsters is fun.
It is. So, my first intro to Diablo was Diablo 2.
Yeah, I've been banned from that 2 or 3 times.
And I still
for using
I think
map packs.
I don't even know if I have it installed.
I don't have it installed, but I have 4 other keys.
But I have Diablo 3, and I bought the expansion to that because my buddy was playing it, and then shortly after I bought that, and we were going to play together, and he was going to get me leveled up and everything, and then he passed away, and I've never opened it since.
Right.
But the only other game I really ever play, I mean, I've played other computer games, but World of Warcraft was like,
right.
I played it for 10 years.
I still can't believe that game's still going, only because they keep expanding, but it's the same thing.
Right. The game never changes.
No, it's the same thing with just the new characters, you know.
That I shut off my account right before the last expansion came out, and I haven't logged in for. It's been over a year now.
Chris and I play once in a while. You know, we'll start and then we'll quit again. She keeps going. She loves the graphics on it, but I can't imagine.
They're great.
If they did a complete overhaul of the game,
yeah.
Can you imagine the graphics they could put out now on that thing? I mean, they'd be.
I think they're slowly improving them. You know, they're limited to so much they can do with each expansion, and
right.
You know,
but their expansions are all backward compatible too. So
right.
They kind of almost have to say, okay, if you get this next expansion, the other ones are included in it, but things have changed.
Right.
You know, they almost have to do that.
But
it's different servers and everything. You know, migrate your new people over, and people who don't want to upgrade can play on this old technology. Here's our new technology. No sleeping. So what's the first digital nude you remember?
Oh.
I remember
probably a nipple somewhere.
Mine, I remember it'd either be Leisure Suit Larry.
Oh yeah.
Or where if you stood back, it was all done with ASCII characters, and if you stood back and used your imagination, you could see something. So that
you could see Bush.
That would probably be my first one that I remember, and
I remember playing Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, Leisure Suit Larry was fun.
Because
I only played the first one. I didn't care for the other 50 that they put out.
But. I was at a cousin's house, another cousin. I've got so many.
Right.
And my Uncle Chuck was a farmer, so he had a computer to run his farm business.
Right.
Well, his kids wanted computer games. They were the same ones that had the Intellivision.
Okay.
So their mom went and bought them a game and brought it home. It was Leisure Suit Larry.
That's awesome.
And I was probably 12 at the time.
Right.
And they're younger than me, so...
What's the password?
But
man.
They didn't know really how to play it, and I was like, well, I'll just see if I can figure it out, and I saw nipples.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't wear a condom, you die right away.
Yeah.
It was a fun game. It
and
really was.
I think they never got to play it, really.
Right. After mom saw you play it, they were done, right?
Right.
So do you have any gaming systems now?
The only one I have right now, which is sitting at home in a box, is a Nintendo 64 with a stack of games.
Right.
And I might have 4 controllers for it.
Cool.
And then I recently put together a RetroPie on a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
And I've downloaded some ROMs. I know that
gray area.
That's a gray area, what ROMs you can download, because they say if you own the cartridge, you can download the ROM. But
I used to have a ROM reader. In fact, I might be getting another one when I go up to the cities. Yeah. So I could read all the cartridges that I have.
But I've been playing through Metroid again and Super Mario's. My hands fall asleep. I can't. I'm so old. My hands fall asleep.
Carpal tunnel.
I know it.
Yeah.
But
get one of those.
Yeah, for bowling.
Right.
But no, I've been playing through some games that I remember playing when I was young. Playing games that I never got to play.
Yeah.
Because
most of your stuff Nintendo.
Primarily, yeah. And Super Nintendo.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Nintendo-based stuff. Yeah.
Nintendo-based stuff.
I didn't do the N64 because it took up too much space.
When I first got out of high school and went to college, I had a Sega Genesis.
Yep.
And
want another one? I've got 4 in the house.
Played Joe Montana football till till the buttons wore out, and of course Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, mine was Road Rash. Road Rash 2.
Yeah.
And I figured out the pattern
Mm-hmm.
in binary for these save codes.
Yeah.
Figured out the patterns, wrote them all down, and then I was able to give myself umpteen money, whatever shit I wanted. But it was all binary, and I figured all the codes out. And
It's funny.
I was just a nerd, you know.
That's what I haven't thought. I need to go because Metroid has save codes
Right.
where you can go to the password screen and enter a password, and it'll recall your character with that. It's probably some algorithm they use to figure out that code.
Right.
That's like almost a reverse encryption type thing.
There wasn't even an algorithm. Usually,
Yeah.
like for Road Rash 2, it wasn't hex based.
Yeah.
It went 0 through like Q were the numbers. And so you convert that to binary, and then so this section was toggles for which motorcycles you had. So you
Right.
just set them all to 1.
Right.
So it was like Q, 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 you know, or whatever. And then the next section was money. The next section was skills.
Right.
So these codes were actually binary codes that they would convert into this 0 through Q pattern.
Right.
And
I don't. So that's the
still
one
to
thing
this
I haven't done is just go out and look up like a Metroid code
yeah, because now they'll be out there.
because they got to be all over the net, right?
Yeah.
And just put it in so I have everything,
Right.
and then I can just run around and explore and just kill things
Right.
like I want, you know.
Yeah. Get a vintage boner.
Oh,
So for me, I had to write them all down because I couldn't remember. And we will be posting pictures on the podcast once we're done here. But so I've got a NES, N64, Atari 2600, Sega Genesis with the SMS add-ons. I could play the old games. Sega Saturn that I found out on Junk Day. Somebody just threw it out on the curb. Thing
Really?
fires right up. It probably needs a new CD. But oh, look at that! I got a delivery. Onion rings from Bob's. Thanks, honey. Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, and this thing called a Fairchild, which is almost like a Intellivision, but it's like from 1974. So it had 2 controllers, but you could also put cartridges in it.
yeah.
And the video doesn't work on it right. It's all scrambly. So I got to go through and replace all. It's really easy. You replace all the capacitors in it, and usually that tightens the frequencies back up.
Yeah.
But I just haven't done it yet. And then PCs I threw in there as well. So I've got an Apple II GS, Timex Sinclair 1000, an iMac, Commodore 64, Trash 80, Atari 800 XL, Atom Computer, and a TI 99 4A. And if anybody has a SNES, ColecoVision, Atari 5200, 7200, or 800, or Apple IIs, I'll take them. I'm looking for them. I don't really want to buy anymore, but so we talked about this stuff already. So one project, we're doing the stuff with the Raspberry Pis. One project I'm looking into, and I've got all the data for it. I just have to compile everything and figure out how to do it. I want to take all my vintage computers, run them through my Pi.
Yeah.
It can store as a large hard drive, but I can also use it to telnet out to the net through Wi-Fi, and I can run bulletin board systems off of every one of these vintage computers through my Pi. So each one of them would just run a standard serial line, and there's 16 ports on a Pi, so I can run a serial line off of each port and put it out through Wi-Fi and Telnet, and people could Telnet into my computers and run bulletin board systems like the good old days.
You're such a nerd.
So I hope I can get it done. We'll see. So Phil, he deleted his question, and we're kind of at odds about this, but he said, what was more influential, the MOS 6502 or the Motorola 68K? We didn't look up anything on the Z80, but my argument would be that the MOS 6502 was in the original Apples and Atari PCs, and even like the Commodore 64 had a 6510.
Right, yeah.
But then the newer versions of the Apple Lisa and Max had the 68K series. So
yeah,
in my opinion, the Apple IIs started a revolution, a PC revolution. So
True.
my argument would be the 6502 was the most
Right,
influential
'cause-
because it kicked off a revolution.
Right, and even the later 6500s were in the Nintendo Classic.
Right.
So there you have a PC
They're
revolution,
cold.
and you're eating on the air.
Yeah.
Jesus, man,
They're
I
good.
need a nap.
Matt Wolf, I did see the I do have the Necromancer, by the way, for Diablo 3.
But so to me the 6500 was more important gaming wise because of the Atari 2, and then the Nintendo.
Mhm.
Nintendo was the big one. I mean that was
To me,
huge.
Apple was the PC revolution. Atari started the revolution. Nintendo perpetuated it into what it is today.
Correct.
So
Correct.
Nintendo
But-
mainstreamed it.
But we're kind of at odds because I said the 68Ks really started the PC revolution because of the Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And I still stand by that. I still think
To me,
that's
the
true.
original Macs failed, so I don't count it. But that was more of a marketing thing than it was anything.
Right.
IBM came in, started lowballing, and I love Apple IIs. Hate everything else about Apple. I don't
Yeah.
like anything about
Right.
current Apple
Right.
products.
And that's one game that we never we just kind of blew past was Oregon Trail.
Mhm.
What kid our age, or who didn't play Oregon Trail in school?
Right.
I think they still play it now on modern equipment.
Right. Well, they do. They have a new version,
Our-
newer.
I mean,
edition of
when
it.
I was a kid, early 80s, our school had 2 Apple IIs. And,
in the
then I
library, right?
well, they had like a separate media room.
Oh, okay.
And you had to load the floppies to boot them up. And,
Right.
But, they were side by side. You could sit there, 2 people at a time got to play Oregon Trail. And that's one of my earliest memories of video games as well.
Right.
But the version I played, like you said earlier, off air, was that you had to solve a math problem to help you through. I mean, it was more education based, not aiming and shooting at animals when you would have to go hunting, but you'd have to solve a math problem to figure out your probability of killing it and being successful.
So Matt Wolf said, go back to this, because I can't read the screen at the same time, plus now it quit. He said that he thinks they would lose, World of Warcraft would lose player base if they upgraded the video, because a lot of people are still playing on a budget.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think they would rekindle old players.
Well, the
Who
big
are
big
tired
push
of
when
the
I quit was
boring stuff.
people, people going back to third-party vanilla servers just to play the classic game, because the game is so much different now than it was when it first came out.
Right.
I remember starting a new character and dying like every 10 minutes. Well, you don't even hardly die anymore.
Right. Yep.
But what's the next question?
I'm just going live here again. Stupid thing. Our video keeps cutting out. I apologize. So Phil, I hope that answered your question. Bryant, he has 2 chairs and is eating cake. He'll probably not listen to this, but he'll know what he's sitting on then. It ain't cake.
Yeah.
Cassie, I don't like Rampage anymore. Not that I don't like it. I don't play it anymore. But I definitely that was a huge game for me
I never
in the
heard of it.
stand-ups.
I'm never,
So you were either basically King Kong or Godzilla,
right.
and you go around beating the shit out of buildings while they're trying to shoot you down.
And I went out and I found a YouTube video of it,
Mhm.
and but I'd never heard
Destruction
of it
was
before
fun. Yeah,
today.
I loved it as
I would
an arcade game.
I
Never-
probably would have liked it.
I never played it as a console game. I played it as a stand-up video game.
It's enough where I'll probably go try and find a ROM of it
Mm-hmm.
and just check it out.
I have every ROM you need on my computer. So that was Cassie. Jesse, my answer. I have two answers for why is Miss Pac-Man so sexy. Oh Jesus! I'm not even drinking. The first answer to why is Miss Pac-Man so sexy? Fuck. She was to gamers what Jessica Rabbit was to cartoon buffs.
Amen.
She gamers just it was a girl introduced that I don't know. I wouldn't call her sexy, but there weren't many. She ate the balls, yeah. But there weren't many female characters in video games at first. So, but then also, just because the kind of women you usually get attracted to, Jesse, the heavy makeup and all that stuff really could be a man. It could just be Pac-Man dressed in drag.
Yeah,
because I know you're kind of into that. So
and the pink bow.
Yeah, the pink bow. So I think that's why you really liked him.
Yeah. Jesse, just so you know, if a girl has a mustache, she's not a girl.
Well, that's not true, but
not always.
After 30, well, before 30. But then Adam, we kind of touched on most of what you've asked, but vintage video games be the height of my gaming. No, because I do play new stuff. I play on the PS4 and all that.
Right.
But I always go back to the vintage games.
Yeah.
Maybe because they were easier, or maybe it's it was a simpler time in life. I don't know, but I enjoyed those. So
I enjoy going back, but I still like.
I like
for me, probably if I had to pick a game to just sit and play, it would probably be Portal on the PC.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto online for me.
And I don't.
Or Diablo.
I mean, I had an Xbox 360 that I sold because I never played it. And
I have it because people were giving them to me because they were broken and I fixed them.
And I
never paid for one.
Have PlayStation or PlayStation whatever or the one Xbox One 360. Or the
I have an original Xbox somewhere sitting here in a box.
Xbox 180.
It's.
I had an original Xbox too, and I don't remember what happened.
My Xbox is now in a brown box.
Oh.
So Dave C asked, what's the highest score in Pong? I couldn't find a recorded score. I found a few people bragging of high scores, but I couldn't find anything that had a recorded highest score ever.
So I got a text message, Bubble Bobble. Did you like the game? And if so, arcade version or the console version? This particular person said that he dropped plenty of quarters in that game over the years.
I never played it.
Maybe I did once or twice, but I didn't.
I played a lot of Marble Madness, but I never played Bubble Bobble.
I never played I don't think.
Yeah, Marble Madness was a stupid game, but I was addicted to it on the Apple.
So, we're going to say we don't know on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the arcade version. Arcade versions of games just seem to be way better.
Right.
For some reason.
Well, they had bigger processors and more memory than a small...
Right.
You had... Back then, you had a lot of heat issues that they could put fans and stuff in a console.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have fans in the original desktop stuff,
yeah.
So...
I think maybe it was just the excitement of standing in front of something. The screen was... You're right in front of the screen, so it's big. Mm-hmm. The buttons are right, there. I don't know. Arcade versions of games always seem to be better.
Like the sounds were better, the
general.
graphics were better.
Right.
Better tube on an arcade game than the shitty black and white TV that mom and dad had.
Yeah, because Mario Brothers in black and white was not fun.
No.
I mean, it was fun, but it just didn't look the same.
Let's see. Mike, I answered your question online, but they do make an adapter. It's the same adapter they used way back when, but now they've added a coaxial cable, which they did in the 80s for the Nintendo.
For what?
So the adapter to plug into the TV from a Nintendo or an Atari. So you can use the Nintendo style adapter, which has a coaxial cable on it, screw that into your back of your TV, plug your Atari 2600 into it and just switch from game to TV when you need to, and it works great. So I've got a few of them. They do go bad after 20 years or whatever. They can be fixed, but it's usually just capacitors get old and leak and whatever, and they're part of what create the frequency. So you gotta replace the capacitors. You're usually good to go. Joey, did anyone actually buy the Power Glove?
I don't know anybody that owned it.
I didn't know anyone who had one. I knew a couple kids who wanted it, but no one ever had it. Said 100,000 of them sold in the U.S. Not really staggering numbers, but they also only ever made 2 games for it.
Right.
So nobody cared. You
Right.
know, they someone dropped the ball, but it wasn't a Nintendo product. It was an aftermarket product that no one made games for.
Right.
So I think it could have been pretty cool.
Right.
If they would have kept on it. So
Probably the most well-known accessory for the Nintendo was the gun.
right.
Because everybody played Duck Hunt because it came with it.
Yep.
And the way that worked was this: you didn't actually shoot the screen shot you, and the gun picked up that light on the screen, or that. So how do you make that work on a new flat screen TV?
So the way that gun actually worked, you can't see a TV when you watch old style TV. When you watch it, it's actually drawing lines over and over and over again. This thing's just shooting lines, and you so fast you don't see it. The gun was timed so that it would black the screen, put a white spot on the screen wherever the object was you had to shoot. The gun had an optical sensor in it, and depending on how much brightness that thing detected on that object was where you were aimed at.
Right.
So it actually detected the screen, but the screen was refreshing so fast our eyes couldn't see it, but the gun was timed to it. So LCD screens come out, and LED screens, they take the data and pop it all on the screen at once. There is no drawing. It's all just there. So the gun can no longer see that black and white, the black screen with the white burst on it. So I'll link to the video in the podcast, but there was a guy who took a Raspberry Pi, hooked in a Wii sensor to it, a Wii sensor bar, attached the Wii remote to the side of the gun, and then using his Pi configured that gun with the Wiimote on it to shoot on the screen. So he has plans out there for how to use a Raspberry Pi with Wii parts to fix your gun to work it on a new TV. Work. Yeah. Yep. So I'll post a link to it. I didn't look to see if he actually had a diagram on how to do it. If he didn't, I will be glad to figure it out and post the information when I can, because that's pretty cool.
Right.
I just got rid of my gun because I didn't think there was a way, and I never thought of retrofitting a Wiimote on it.
Uh-huh.
So pretty cool. This guy came up with it. I'm thinking you could probably actually market that. Get the Nintendo gun, take the guts out of it, put the Wiimote guts inside of it,
right,
and sell it as a package.
Yeah.
Now whether Nintendo would get all up in arms about that or not, I don't know. You would think the demand is high enough they would market that themselves. People would pay good money to have a gun that worked with new TVs.
Yeah, they tried to come out with the Nintendo Classic, and the demand was high, and they just said, "We're only making 50 of them."
Yeah, well, but they're coming back out with them. So
with the Super Nintendo.
The Nintendo Classic is being rebooted, but I think it's got different games on it. I think it's like Atari did with.
They lost me.
Yeah,
because Atari's coming out with one too.
Yeah, another one. But remember, they kind of did that for a while, and it really didn't take off.
Well, there's been a Sega one for a long time.
Yeah.
It's got like 60 games on it.
Yeah, but Atari did them in like 5 releases, and they'd put like 1 or 2 good games on them, and then shit games for the rest. And people were just like, come on, you guys, Yeah. They need to just make it like the Wii did, and say, hey, you want classic games? $5 a piece. Just download them off Wi-Fi. Here's the console. Store them in memory, and you can play any games you want, buy them for $5. That's what they should be doing. Yep. Atari, I think, would have a huge comeback if they did that. So, Alicia, I am going to also post another link on there. So, you were asking how come people flail their hands up when they jump and do this and all that. And it's an involuntary reaction subconsciously. So if you're walking along the street and you fall or you trip, your body automatically puts its hands out and braces itself in case you fall. It's a knee-jerk reaction. You don't just sit there and fall. Your body takes over. Your subconscious takes over. And I was reading an article about it, and we'll link to it. That's what happens when you're doing this. People get so involved in the game that their subconscious starts taking over and doing the motions of what they're doing in the game. It's completely involuntary. I couldn't find... I was hoping they'd have some type of a medical term for what that's called, but it started taking me into talks about autism and ADHD, and I'm like, no, totally different thing than what I'm asking here. So,
and, you've heard of the Tetris. There's now a disorder that's based on Tetris, where even when you're not playing Tetris, it messes with your mind, and you start to see the patterns in the shapes around you.
Really?
And how they fit together, and you can't... It's like...
No shit.
It like totally screws up your day.
Oh, wow.
Or longer.
I never cared that much for Tetris. I can play it about 10 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, this is dumb.
My sister could play forever on level 20. And just
keep going.
Those pieces would show up, and they'd be down, and she could just... She probably could have... Yeah.
Well, there's a similar game that Jesse got me into called 1010 on the phone that I play. So it's kind of like Tetris, but you drag the pieces up and put them where they're supposed to go. But it starts doing the same thing where it's like, oh, you have to put these pieces in the right order, or you're not going to move on to the next level because you're not going to be able to place a piece.
So it's actually called the Tetris effect, and we'll link to it in the show notes. But
Tetris effect.
It occurs when people devote so much time and attention to an activity that it begins to pattern their thoughts, mental images, and dreams.
No shit.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily about Tetris, but that's where it originates, because it would totally take over your mind. I mean, your mind.
Wow, that's cool though. I mean, it's freaky, but it's cool
and amazing. Yeah. So our parents were right. These games are going to ruin our minds.
Well, or sharpen them, one of the two.
Well, I totally think that video games are good for hand-eye coordination.
Right.
And
to a point, yeah.
Somewhat of a fine motor skill. Now, the controllers they have these days, I don't have enough hands to use.
Right.
But
they also, some of the games nowadays give kids a false sense of reality. So
true.
You see YouTube videos of these kids going, yeah, I'm going to shoot this guy because I'm an ace at, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
Something stupid like that. And that to me is where parents aren't doing their jobs, seeing that there's a problem with the child. They're just saying, go play a video game and leave me alone. Right. And I'll be honest, when I'm frustrated, here you go, man. Here's a phone. Leave me alone for a little bit. But it's not him going off into a corner,
right,
playing video games for hours and me just ignoring him.
Right.
It did start to kind of get that way because he just enjoyed it and I was letting him play, and we pulled it back.
Mm-hmm.
So we just started back. He's only 4, and we keep pulling ourselves back because it's easy.
Right.
But we just started saying, hey, dinner, phone,
right,
put it away. You're talking to us.
That's where vintage gaming is great, because it's so easy to say, this is just a game.
Right.
I know this isn't real. Mario's not coming to my house tomorrow. The monsters in Metroid aren't coming to my house.
Right.
They look like cartoons. It's not.
But they're so violent. It promotes violence. That it doesn't.
It doesn't. But the video games today are so realistic,
right,
that for young children, it's hard for them to tell the difference.
Right.
And I think if your kids are going to play video games, they need to reach a certain level of maturity.
Right. And don't let, I play Grand Theft Auto online.
Right.
Don't let your damn kids play that game.
No. Don't
let your 13-year-old sit there and talk shit to an adult like he's going to come whoop his ass.
Yeah.
And, it's just, don't raise him with that mentality.
Right.
It's just stupid, but people are dumb.
Anyhow.
So then Kathy, her son Nick, what is it? How do you get to the minus world? It actually is pretty simple for me. on Mario, and we'll link to a video on how to do it. But there's a spot where you go and you break a brick.
Yep.
And then you kind of jump and move at the same time, and you can end up going down and into this portal. I found it harder in Super Mario Brothers to get the unlimited lives because I was uncoordinated, so it would take me a couple turtles to get it done. I'd end up dying. Or, you know what I'm talking about, though, where
I know exactly.
You hit the turtle in the right spot and it'll just jump forever,
and you get to 99 lives.
Oh, better, because then it starts going into graphics. So
I don't remember that. I just remember it going to 99.
No, it'll go 99, and then it'll go into like an angled bracket, and you could go up to 65535 for lives, and then just play forever and not care.
Huh.
So Nick, I'll put the link on it. Jason said, does anyone remember the trick for killing the pterodactyl in the game Joust in the arcade? No one cares. So, moving on. No, I'm kidding.
I don't even remember that game.
I saw somebody do it once. I don't know how he got to the level, but I've seen the level once. But I liked Joust, but I played it more. I didn't play it a whole lot on the arcade. So, I don't know if it had the pterodactyl level on the PCs or not. But I have seen it. And, I YouTubed it just to refresh my memory. There was a simple way to master it where you got 1,000 points over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's just unlimited. So, then Corey. Oh,
we talked about the gun.
Yep. So the gun, we'll link to that too. Corey, if you have one, we can go out on the Wish app and get something that's not a Raspberry Pi, but it's another Linux-based, I don't even know what you'd call those, little mini computer.
Yeah.
Cheap.
It's like a Beagle board or something?
Yeah, they're smaller, but they still have the same capacity for what we need to do. You can buy those. You can buy the sensors and aftermarket Wiimotes dirt cheap. Probably cost about $15 in parts, and put them in your Nintendo gun, and away you go. I'd be happy to try.
Yeah. Well, do we have any further questions on
there were
the
some.
Facebook one?
I just can't. I don't know how to get to them. I click comments and it's not showing me. So, Stu had one that he texted me. So, guys, I'll have to answer your questions later because I can't see them on my Facebook Live, and it keeps shutting off on me, so that doesn't help either. So, Stu said a 4-player adapter for NES. Can Ivan Stewart's Off-Road be played with 4 players or just 2? I don't know. The way those 4-player adapters work is they split the signal. They're not serial related like they are now. So nowadays, controllers work on a serial,
right?
Some of them even parallel transmission. Mm-hmm. The old ones literally were voltage on 4 pins, and depending on where that voltage was would depend on what direction that joystick was. So I would say it probably can't, but the kicker there is if you go on. So I'm looking at possibly picking up what's called an EEPROM burner or a ROM burner. So I can download ROMs and burn them to my own Nintendo cartridges. They actually make a Nintendo cartridge that you can just plug a ROM in, pull it out, plug another one in, and you can have any game you want that way without using an emulator. You can play it in your real system.
Yeah.
So there are people who take these games and modify the code to upgrade them to new technology. So I would venture to bet that someone has taken that game and turned it into a true 4-player game. But I don't know that. We'd have to go out and kind of sniff around online to see if that's happened. But, if I get one of those EEPROM burners, I would love to get the blank cartridge and play with it.
That would be awesome.
And just see how that works, play any game I want pretty
Yeah.
much. And nowadays, we were talking about this the other day, there's someone's got a cartridge that's got 160 games on it. And basically what it is I talked a little bit about the technology on those. So there's space on the ROM where the code goes, and it moves the code into that space. Well, they built a menu in that space then that menu takes and moves the game code into the playable space and launches it from there. So it just copies code from its own memory and pops it on these spots in the ROM. It's pretty cool technology.
And I've seen that when I'm out looking for ROMs for the to play on the RetroPie.
Yep.
You'll see they'll say like 7-in-1 or 9-in-1.
Yeah.
Up to the highest I've seen is like 160-in-1.
Right.
And it's literally a giant ROM that contains all these other ROMs, and you fire it up, pick the game you want to play, and
it's a little sub menu. Yeah.
Off you go.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yep.
So has anybody else texted you any questions?
I don't have any others.
I don't have any else in text messages. I'll answer them if these Facebook Live things pop up. I'll answer them when I can. Again, the video feed keeps shutting off, and the first one was my problem. I forgot to fully plug in the back of the laptop, and the whole damn thing shut off. So, with that being said, guys, if you have more questions, or if there's something you want to talk about on these podcasts, I know some people think podcasts are boring. Other people think it's cool. You're getting an insight into a friend's lives or whatever, and we try to talk about stuff that people want to talk about. So, if there's a topic you guys want covered in a podcast, shoot me a message. Shoot Bubba a message. We won't always do this Facebook Live. In fact, I'll probably never do it again because it keeps shutting the video off on me.
If we can figure it out, maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
If I could figure out why it's shutting itself off, I'm not doing it. It's, but yeah, so maybe we'll do some more. Who knows? But send us questions, comments, etc. We're going to go into full edit mode here now on the podcast, and it takes about an hour or so, and we'll publish it. Again, any other questions? Shoot us a message.
I got a couple.
Uh-oh.
Corey wants to know. He says, "Now be honest. Did you ever use cheats?" Fuck yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who doesn't?
Well, and like I said, I decoded cheats myself. So they had that goofy adapter thing you could plug into the Nintendo that would have all the cheats in it. I don't remember what that thing was called. I'm sure I'll get a million dings on it here, but
right.
I figured them out for myself. That's what I do. I'm a programmer. I debug stuff. So I figured out cheat codes on my own. Save codes were different. So some of them had battery back RAM, and they would save data. Like Legend of Zelda was probably one of the first that did that. They actually made devices that you could plug that cartridge in, and modify the memory.
The Game Genie.
Game Genie, that's what it was. But I don't know if you could modify data with the Game Genie or not, if it just had all those save codes stored in it. But
they had something.
But I know they had other things you could plug in and actually modify the game data. Okay. So I was mostly a gamer on the Apple II when I started. So I learned how to do all that stuff just through programming. First program I ever cheated on, Lemonade Stand. It was written in BASIC and an Apple II, and it basically taught you how to start a small business and run it. And I got bored, so I would just go in and start myself off with $1 million lemonade stand, and then I didn't really give a fuck if it rained outside. I don't care if it's raining. I still got $999,000.
That's right. So yeah, everybody looked for up, down, left, right, BA, start, select, start.
Yeah, whatever that was.
Wasn't that the Contra code?
I don't remember what game it was for anymore.
Konami.
Well, but I had a Sega Genesis. I never had a Nintendo.
Right.
So I had to that game. I had Rambo, which was the same game, just Rambo.
Right.
So
even then, like Mortal Kombat on the Genesis.
Oh yeah.
And then there were. It was almost like a cheat code, but you had to know the key combinations.
Oh, and they were
finishing
ridiculous. Yeah, and you'd get mad, because you'd think you did it.
Yeah,
and somewhere in there your finger rounded just a hair.
Yeah, and then it ended up just punching the dude, and they fell over or whatever.
Right, or else they kicked the shit out of you, and the game was done. Yeah,
but yeah.
So was there another one, or was that?
I think that was it.
All right, I did get. Let me just check here real quick. We're running out of time because we got a lot of editing to do, but
Chad wants to know.
Game Genie. All right.
Wants to know why I tried to break his ear off for beating me in Tecmo football because he cheated. It was easy.
When you ask what's the best video game of all time, that comes up in the list in the top 5. Never played it. I have it.
Yeah.
Never played it.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, but
they zigzag back and forth across the field, and nobody would ever catch you.
Right. But on 2 players, I'm assuming a little bit more difficult. But we could go into. I'm also a collector. I should have taken pictures of these. So I've got the old LCD games, football games, where it's just
the dots,
bleak, and 2-player, 1-player. I've got hockey, baseball, basketball, 3 types of football, and then I've got a little mini desktop of Galaga, and something else. I can't remember, Galaga and Galaxian maybe or something, but yeah, we could get into that too, but we won't today. So Corey wanted to know if I remember the game Driver. Don't remember it. Never heard of it. But Corey, I'm 15 years older than you or whatever, so it would just been different generations is all. So we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks everybody.
Thanks a lot, guys.
We'll try this stuff some more and keep on trucking. Again, questions, shoot them over to me or Bubba, and we'll answer them when we can. So
yep.
Thanks, guys.
Later, gamers.